Hello and Aloha Pa. My name is Abbas Temori. I'm the elder of Baha'ullah on the earth. Continuing his mission for mankind's progress, spiritual progress. I'm to interpret and extrapolate from his writings what he wanted to say otherwise if he was here. So time is 11:12. Today is Friday night. Tomorrow's Canada Day. And we're going to continue what we said last time. Last time, the discussion was that the material existence needs to be in an absolute nothingness, without which it cannot be. And that was the idea of Karl Marx. However, absolute nothingness, material is acceptable. But in the Baha'i Faith, we do not believe there's an absolute nothing can exist. If there is no material in it, there is something else in it. And I quoted from the word of Abdul-Baha, I'll do it again, which it says, and I quote, "Apart from this, absolute non-existence lacks the capacity to attain existence. If the universe were pure nothingness, existence could have not been realized." So, what we know as nothing in the Baha'i Faith, it's the cause of existence. And Baha'ullah says this, and I quote again, I did it last time too. He says, "Inasmuch by a word of his command, all that are in heaven and on earth have come to exist, and by his wish, which is the primal will itself, all have stepped out of utter nothingness into the realm of being, the world of visible." So Baha'u'llah says the visible world, the realm of existence, realm of being, all of it came from that absolute nothingness, stepped out of that. Well, of course, many people say that this is just a conjecture of somebody who thinks it's a philosopher. We need evidence to know what is physically nothing can cause what is a thing. So there has to be some scientific, some evidence, logical at least. Abdullah further explained this and uncovered this in a book called Promulgative, in the page 9. He says the spiritual world is like unto the phenomenal world. They're the exact counterpart of each other. Whatever object appears in this world of existence are the outer pictures of the world of heaven. So, this cup, which is existing, Abdullah says this exactly exists into that nothingness. This is in fact a manifestation of it, he says. So, I remember I was talking to some doctor in city of Prince George, British Columbia. I think it was an Egyptian doctor there. When I brought this, he said, "Your theory is like playing with words." I told him, "How so?" I remember he was having coffee. He said, "Tell me what is non-existence in this cup, he says. If the world is made out of thing and that nothing, well, that nothing has to exist here. Where is it?" I told him there is. This is really, We're that blind. I said, yeah. And there's a different side, And I said, what that is? I said, this cup cannot exist without being designed first. The design of this cup is the spiritual cup. If you don't design this cup in your brain, in your head, in your mind, you can never make this. This is just a manifestation of what was in the mind of the maker. Everything that we as a human we make, it needs a design. That's what the English, proverbs, mind over matter. They knew this, I don't know, eons ago, even in Europe. So therefore, everything has a design. Some people say, well, the design of a cup is electronic things in the computer. Sure, but you're making electrons to picture this, but electron is matter. You're using matter to say what it is. Actual design is not material at all. I did that in a restaurant too. I put all the beans together and I said a word. And I told him this is what I brought from the other side to this side. And he said, this is how you get the soul to come here? I said, exactly. Because this is beans, but it means to you a word, a meaning. I conveyed a meaning to you using these words. That meaning, that significance is not material. This is very hard to understand for many, many people yet. I don't know why. They have a hard time to understand that, no, that's all they say is material. Design is not material. So, therefore, we ourselves, the human being, we are making nothing. The design is made out of nothing. Well then, we must have some nothingness in us too. Not only that, but it's a thinking being. It can think, because it can design. Animals cannot design. We can. We make nothing, and we ourselves don't understand. So if we go, what could be beyond this material world? Basically, in the Baha'i Faith, we don't say next life or next world. Baha'ullah says many, many worlds. We can say thousands, but I categorized it basically in three things, beside this material that we can logically assume should exist to be the backbone of what we have. There must be design. Everything has a design. It's got to be there. Some of it natural, like the tree design, or some of it like this cup that we make with a design. The second level on the other side is this. A design must have a designer, which is completely in a different realm. The difference between me and the cup was the difference between the design and designer. Which in this case, designer, it would be one level bigger than design on the other side. That's what we call it soul, spirit. And Abdul Baha says it has 5 senses, 5 spiritual senses, which is imagination, thinking, comprehensions, and memory, and willingness. So this is where the design and then the designers are. But when we look between our design and the design in the nature, there's a huge difference. Animals, just like human, they must have design. But there is no designer behind that design. It's like a computer, it's like a robot. There's a software in it that makes it to move and do things that they have installed on that. Comes with a design. No animal can be a designer, can design anything. Whatever they do is a repeat of same thing over and over. So then there is designer, there's a different realm. This is why we assume that designer is soul, which the thinking comes from it, imagination comes from it, choice comes from it. So Abdu'l-Baha says it has 5. The soul can imagine. Out of imagination, he refines into thinking, and then the thinking comes to the comprehension, comprehending it, and then it's memorized, and all of that comes by the willingness. So far we saw that beyond, in that world of nothingness, that we see physically nothing, there must be design, and that's how Baha'u'llah says everything comes out in this world through the designs. But they need a designer. And we can see human is a designer. But then there is trees. There's a difference between our design and design of the trees. We design using our soul, do the thinking. We think. And based on that, we design. Therefore, our design can be replicated. We can make a Toyota, we can make it over. Because design is memorized, is there. But because in the nature we do not see any repetition, there's no redundancy. As Hegel says, things in nature does not repeat itself. There's no two things that are the same. And if you take this philosophy to be correct, then all these quantum mechanic people are wrong when they say electrons are all the same. They can't be. If they're matter and material, every electron should be different from the other electron. It's just we're at a level that we don't see it that much. It's like we say, oh, all the bricks in the building, they're the same. Yeah, at one level, yes. But actually, each brick is different from other brick. The same way is just electrons. So when we look at the nature, we see the tree must have a different design. It can be by thinking. It is like somebody takes a paint and throws at the wall. Of course nothing comes out. We can't throw the paint on the wall randomly and create Mona Lisa. It's impossible. But it seems there is some kind of a being on that side that he throws things just like that and it becomes tiger. It becomes earth. It becomes all these amazing things. It works instinctively. That being is just uses the will. That's what ancient, in the Bible, and we have the, saying, God says be and it becomes. He just wills it. That's why Baha'ullah says by his prime will, he says though, not any will, prime will. Everything comes right out of nothingness. So there we know the difference, our difference with that being. That we throw things out of will without thinking, we throw the material right on the table, it doesn't become telephone. Randomly, we cannot create anything. We have to think. But there is somebody who seems that does not think. The reason for that is that everything is unique. There's no repetition. If it's out of thinking, there will be repetition. It's not. And he is so huge that when he wills something, it just becomes. We can trace that in ourselves. When we practice a lot, we can see a trace of it in us too. For example, first time when we drive, if we have to stop the car when we see an object, we have to think, where is the pedal to push it down so it stops? We need to think. But after many years of driving, we no longer think. When the danger comes, automatically we stop the car without thinking. We just bypass the thinking. It's like an app installed in the head, directly goes there. Some typists, if you've noticed, they look at you and they type as if their fingers was an eye. So it seems this creator, whoever it is just like typists. It's just like they're driving. He instantly does it and it becomes the most meaningful things. Therefore, there must be something beside designers, that's us, and we call that prime will. So, in order to create then, to get things here, there must be a willingness, a will, okay, to go through the soul to think, and once the design is made, brings it up in this world when it manifests itself. So a design, a designer, and a will. But it seems there are two wills. We have wills, we are willing, but we cannot make it just by willing it. We have to think and design it. But there's a being there who doesn't think. Thinking is because we don't know, or to collect, of knowledge to put it together. But he must be all-knowing. It just does things. So, the consequence is that the result is, conclusion is, that as a human being, we do have willpower. And we have a system that processes that willingness for us. That's our soul. Just like a software to the computer. And then we have the body, which is the hardware. The hardware and the software and somebody who's working behind this. That's really us, and that is called will. That is the will. But there is that being there, as I said, who has created all this thing, but he does not have that being. He does not have those thinking. He does utter will. We see in the books of God, that's how Jesus says. He says that I'm the Son of God, but I like you, like me, to be the sons of God and children of God. Islamic tradition is there. Baha'ullah has brought it out. I think it's in 7 valleys. He says, "Oh, my servant," to the human being, God says. It's a tradition, it's not in Quran. He says, "O servant, follow me, that I make you like myself. When I say be and it becomes, you also say be and it becomes." It seems that the man can grow to a point that does not need any more the software. It's much like a student in the class that he has this books, computer, and all this software. But when he's graduated, he doesn't need anymore. Now he can generate it on his own without having computer. So we kind of become, that's why Jesus like son, like him. In the Baha'i Faith, we said there are 5 different types of design or metaphysics. One for the beings, all the material things, they have a design behind them. The design progressively gets bigger. In the vegetations, the design, it makes the matter to continue to keep the same compound without getting dissolved in time. And it progresses, it grows. It's a machine. Change the nature into color, into fruits, into things. And in animal, the design changes and becomes sight, hearing, voice, and this and that. And in human, suddenly there is something beyond physics, is metaphysics, that makes him to design things. But Baha'i Faith says there's one step higher. That is the intention of the Baha'ullah for us to be. It's called the spirit of faith. It's something between human spirit of thinking, and the spirit of God, which is no thinking, it's just willing. God is willing, human thinking. But it's just something in between. It's more like a photocopy of something. As like a computer that is connected to the internet. It's not the capacity of computer anymore, but it's a relationship with a big computer. That's why it can, through the internet, brings all the news here. It seems that is the plan of this maker for us. That's what he wants to do. Muslims, in the Islamic traditions, they said from God, from that willing power, to the earth, they consider 7 processes, which they call it mashiyat, which means the capability, the willingness, the ability to create. Then they say it's arade or aradat, which means a decision. I can do it, now I'm deciding to do. Then goes to the 3rd process, is called qadr, which means design, which means measures. Qadr means measures, designs. In the Baha'i Faith, Bab and Baha'ullah, they say all these 3 are just that will. They summarize it into will. Then it comes into creation. It goes to the 4th process called qaza, means plan is going to get executed. It's going through the process. And execution, signed, to be done. Then it will have a permission. It will have it will be allowed to come to existence. Then it will be given a ajal, which means a time. Everything has been made, it is beginning and end. Time will be given to it. And then after that, it will get created. This is the 7 process. The Muslims, they bring it in. It's not so much in Sunnis, this is tradition of the successors of the Prophet. But it's authentic, according to the Baha'i Faith, it's authentic divine words. And then the mystics, they call them Arif, Dervish, whatever. They said, okay, if there is a 7 process from God to come, there must be a 7 process also go back to God. This is where the 7 valleys comes. They call it 7 cities of love, which means you have to seek. Once you seek something, you fall in love with it. Out of love, you might die and get perished, but if you survive it, you come to a higher understanding. And that's the third valley. Out of understanding, you understand there's a oneness in this universe. It's a big topic. I've spoken about the 7 valleys. Look into my videos before. And then as a result, you feel that they call it istighna, means feel very, very rich, like you are fulfilled. And then you fall into bewilderment. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you go down. What is going on? And finally, they say you reach to the valley of nothingness, which was a wrong translation. Actually, it means the valley of communications, meaning you're able to communicate with the original. It's like computer becomes nothing. All it's in it is the internet. Computer does not have any information to give you. It's just a means to connect itself to the internet. Man becomes like a computer that shows the internet on it. In this case, internet means God's. God's information is in that person, and that person conveys to us. So anyway, the underlying purpose of all of this is that it seems that big will, prime will, is willing everything, including us. Our very existence, our very essence is that will, that He willed us to be here. Somebody asked Bob. He told him that one of the Imams says that there's nothing in this world that is created without being willing, wanting to be. Like a stone on the ground wanted to be. That's why God has made him to be. So this is the answer to the people that they say that I didn't want it to be. Actually, yes, you want it to be. The way Bob explains, I extrapolated from him, is that it's like an invention. Shall we say of a car, of a phone, like a Steve Jobs. The phone, idea of the phone was like a baby growing in his soul. The phone wanted to be created. That's why he came out. So the will of Steve Jobs is in that creation, in his work. The will of God does not work like he has a will and decide individual to make. It's not like that. It's like I was in the will of my mom and dad. That at certain time, certain minutes, in certain place, on that particular second, where they had mate with each other, that minute, that second was Abbas. A second after is somebody else. So their will has made me. But they are the will of somebody else. And if you go on and on, you can see there is a prime will. That has a will, and that will is like going through everything. So everything comes that runs through the existence is that will. And is infinite. It's going everywhere. And there's no repeat in it. Nothing is repeated. When they were executing Bob in Iran, one of those executioners, those instigators, they asked him Bob to reveal a verse. He did. Then they told him that, can you repeat the verse? Bob said, no, I can't. Why? He said, because there's no repetition. And he slapped Bob because he said that, this is a stupid answer to me. But in reality, Bob was manifestation of God, and just like God, he does not repeat things because it's not by thinking. Thinking can be repeated. Willing is just like a flow. It's like a breathing. When it comes out, it's the same breath is not another breath coming, which means another thing, you see. And it's continuing. So, anyways, everything I tell you right now is philosophy. Logical philosophy. It's not scientific. Because science works with 5 senses. How am I going to get 5 senses into the nothingness? If I deny it, well, then I'm a materialist, blinded, and not to see the facts right there. If I want to get in there, then I have to use philosophy, just as I do, and I said that there is. Now, how do we really understand this? Baha'ullah and the Baha'i Faith, they suggest a different way. They say, well, understanding, Abdul explains it, one is through the senses, then he says it's through the intelligence. For example, you see blue and yellow, but you don't see green. Intelligence tells you that if I mix this, I get green. Green tells me that there must be 2 things behind. They may not have appearance by the eyesight, but wisdom says no. There must be a consequence of something. That's where the scientific, explanation comes. And then it says none of this can explain everything. Neither intelligence, nor intellectual, nor science. They have a limit. Our problem is beyond that. There he says that we have to use a different type of knowledge. And he mentions of that as fu'ad. Bob always talks about fu'ad. If you don't have fu'ad, you can't do it. It seems fu'ad is a different sense out of these 5 senses, both spiritual and metaphysical. It's a different sense that the spirit of faith, the intermediate spirit, understanding level between human and the prime will. What really means, do not mystify this, the word fu'ad, it just simply means you have to have a spiritual understanding. You have to be in a different level of existence. That's what it means. I'll give you an example of it. Imagine a poor old lady that cannot read or write, can't even speak her own language. She has never seen anything in the world except her own village. Somewhere in Africa, somewhere in China, I don't know. A forsaken place. Compare him with Mr. Vladimir Putin. He's gone to university, he speaks different languages, he's done all the education, all the experience, 70 years into it, with all the modern, instrument beside him, and a great, associate and thinker and counselor all around him. And you put a topic in front of Mr. Putin and that old lady. Putin decides, my conclusion is that we have to fight with Ukraine. For a reason now, we get bigger, become greater, we get fulfilled. Old lady says, no, it's wrong. And old lady is right. Why? Because she's just a kind person. Her kindness in heart doesn't allow to see this to be right. This is what I mean by a different level of existence. I brought this example before, that Aristotle and Plato are discussing whether the earth is round or not. He says, oh yeah, look at the ship going down. It seems that the earth is not plane, it's going round. See, I said the mast of the ship is going down. Or they see, the shadow of the sun or the moon, the eclipse. They say it's round. And suddenly a shepherd comes by and says, oh, don't argue, don't bother yourself. It is round. They tell him, how so? He says, I've seen it. They tell him, what? You've seen it? He says, yeah, I was up there. They don't know what to say. Because to be up there is absolutely stupid. How could this boy be up there? But the answer he gives is right, though. They wonder, what means is out there? You see, that boy has a different means. All of a sudden, the entire science becomes obliterated. It becomes oblivion. It just opens it and sours around. Doesn't need any knowledge. This is what I mean. It's a different dimension of existence. Different level. In fact, we'll discuss, argue more. Baha'u'llah says if we as a human being do not develop this planet will go down. Just like Mars and just like Venus. It's just a farm. If it does not produce what it should, it will go down. Fortunately, there are a lot of people in the earth right now that they do not know, but they're willing to be a spiritual that way, you see. Sign of it, for example, in Nelson Mandela. He comes right on I remember on TV. He said to the people, the black people who suffered a lot, humiliated by this hugely racist, aggressive white people in South Africa, the apartheid regime. He said, I have lost my youth, all my adult life, in jail, 27 years. And I'm able to forgive them. You should be able to forgive them too. And that's it. Otherwise, the blacks would have been decimated, the entire white race, which would be a great loss for South Africa. How should I do that? But that kindness, that humility, humbleness, got him to a level of existence, saved a whole lot of life. So, that is what I mean. It's in them, the purpose of us as a human. We are like nanotechnology of God. We're out here to fix things that I gave you in the previous videos. One is the major plan, which just doesn't benefit God at all. It just makes save the planet. If you cannot become a spiritual, at least the planet doesn't get destroyed. So God has a plan for that, so the planet doesn't get destroyed. Baha'u'llah says that's in the work, and that's 100%, he says this, guaranteed. However, the minor plan is where the Baha'is have to become. Million times I've seen it on TV. The other night from the member of Universal Laws of Justice, Mr. Gibson. The youth were asking, what is the difference of the Baha'i Faith? What does Baha'u'llah do that others are not? He just brought a whole lot of social values about oneness of mankind, disarmament of the world. All of that is not at all Baha'i Faith. They're just a catalyst. They're just means. They're just a road. That's not what Baha'i Faith is, and that's not what Baha'i is. Non-Baha'is can completely capable of thinking those things anyways. The answer is that. I'll explain it to you later on the next one. But Baha'u'llah has come to give us the spirit, the kindness, okay, that we need. different level of existence. He wants to create a different level of understanding in human being, not human spirit. He calls it the spirit of faith. We have to possess that to reach to the goal. I don't know what else is out there to say, except that the next topic would be, so we know these things now, how are we going in this earth here to communicate with that prime will, the will that has made all these natural things by willing, not by thinking. How to get in contact with that force. That's my next topic. And this video again is for the good people of China. See you.